Hey, it's James, Father's Rights and Resources, hashtag how I got custody. Reminder, check out my flow page. It's like a link tree. It's all my links in one. There's a section in there. Called must see information. Every dad needs to see that must see information. There's a online book that's 400 pages. That's more for entertainment value. That's good history, and there's some good quotes in there too about feminism and how it's been 100-year-old agenda to get where we are now, while men sat around just watching and not doing anything, get off their lazy punk ass balls and actually doing something about these feminists taking over. We sat back and let it happen. Especially politicians, limp-wristed, coward, feminine politicians, which is 90% of them. That just give, because you could go to a legislature anywhere in the state and you have to go through a process and you have to get something out of committee in order to put it on the floor to vote on it and stuff. The radical feminists, they go right to the floor and say, hey, we want to pass this domestic violence law. And they go, okay, sure, great. Bunch of simp bitches. But let me get to whether you're representing yourself or you have an attorney and you want to stick with a loser attorney. There's a 99% chance your attorney's going to sell you out, like they all do. But even if you're going to have an attorney, you need to be in the know about what you need to know. And I've made some videos about this, but I just want to make sure I get every single bare minimum thing you need to know. These rules and procedures and things like that are the bare minimum you need to know or have some understanding of these things so that you can light a fire under your attorney if they're not doing their job. The attorneys want to keep you in the dark so that you have nothing to complain about. Imagine a service provider, you hire somebody and it comes, $40, $60, $80 a month comes out of your bill for a service. And I actually had a website, my first website through Vistaprint. I was on an old platform and I was having all kinds of problems putting stuff on there because I was on an old platform. They'd upgraded like 4 or 5 generations of platforms and they never told me and I never saw an option for it. And I would call and say I have problems. Every customer service person said, well, you probably did this wrong. I would type up something and the font would change halfway through the page and it was just chaotic. And then I found out somebody said, oh, you're on the old platform. Why are you still on that? I said, I didn't know there's an old platform. So I complained to them or something, but I was paying them for a service that was low-end service, and I didn't even know it for months. You don't want to pay for a $400 an hour service, and you have no idea what's going on. They want to keep you in the dark, so you don't even know what they're supposed to be doing, what their ethical obligation is. Now, part of you knows, they're not fighting for you, but you don't know how to explain it or whatever, like RPC 1.4, an attorney must communicate with you about how to accomplish your goals. The attorneys act like they're in charge. You follow them. It's their goals and not your goals. So that leads me into things you should know. You need to know the rules of professional conduct, okay? So you need to know, first and foremost, the most important thing, I talk about in many videos, but I keep having consults where people never even tried to look up the law for their case, which they fight for in a court of law with an attorney at law and a judge who used to be attorney at law. You're going to go to court and in a court of law for your lawful rights. You're not even going to know the law. You got to be out of your damn mind to not have enough common sense to figure that stuff out. But here you go. Here goes the list. You need the statute in your state. Google whatever state you're in. Minnesota, New York, Colorado, whatever. Like Colorado statute, best interest of child, factors. And then read all those and copy and paste them somewhere where you can study them or save them and read them over and over and say, where do I win on this point? Where do I win on that point? So you need to know the statutes. If you know how to look up case law, then that's even better. If you don't, you need to get a consult with me. It takes more than just a quickie video to explain and break that stuff down. But basically, it's a higher court precedent. The Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court in your state, or the United States Supreme Court. Like Troxel versus Granville. If you don't know what case law is, go watch my video, Troxel versus Granville on YouTube. Troxel. I have a link to Troxel versus Granville, the full case, on my flow page. That's a United States Supreme Court case talking about your constitutional right to your kids. So you want to know the law and you want to know case law, which is also called common law or higher court precedent or public policy. You want to know the court rules. You have rules for the entire state to follow in civil court, and family court is under civil court. And then your county sometimes has additional specific rules for your specific courthouse and county building and the way they proceed. A courthouse in New York City is going to well, let's say Florida. Courthouse in Orlando or Miami is going to be more popular or more filled with people than Port St. Joe and the Panhandle. And so that building is going to have specific rules that you need to follow, because they'll say file stuff on the 6th floor, call and confirm your hearing. Or if they have e-filing in that courthouse, they'll say e-file your paperwork and then e-serve the other side. And if Port St. Joe's courthouse doesn't have e-filing, they won't have a rule on e-filing. So the state has minimum civil rules that everybody needs to follow. And then the counties have specific rules on top of that. So like in my state, Washington, the law there is the RCW, Revised Code of Washington. But I'll look up Washington State Civil Rules, Superior Court Civil Rules specifically. And then under that, you got rules for attorneys, rules for judges, rules for Superior Court, rules for Court of Appeals under that. But I'm just mainly making the point of statewide civil rules. And then there's King County local rules, local civil rules in Seattle. King is the county that Seattle's in. So if I type in King County local civil rules, the statewide rule in Washington is Civil Rule 7 on motions. File a motion, sign it, attach your exhibits. You can have a telephonic appearance in court. That's about the whole rule. King County's local Rule 7 says file with the court. You can e-file. You have to do it 9 court days before the hearing. You have to check with the judge on his calendar to make sure that he's available. You have to use a note for motion docket. There's also rules if you go for a low-level judge called a commissioner, you have to serve the other side 14 days out. The judge's rules are 9 days out. You file with the clerk of the court. You also file working copies for the judge, and you got to serve the other side. You have to confirm a hearing in front of a commissioner, or they throw it out. You have to file a proposed order, and so on and so on. Page limit to this. You get to do a motion 14 days before the hearing for a commissioner, 9 days before a judge. You've got to memorize all this. I'm just giving you an example of how more detailed the local rule is. The other side gets to respond 5 court days before the hearing. You get to do a strict reply 3 court days before the hearing. And so you get 10 minutes of oral argument, all that detailed stuff. So you have a statewide rule, which sometimes is shorter. And then you have a corresponding local county rule. And sometimes the statewide rule covers everything enough, so there won't be, like the local rules will be 1 through 5, and then 7 through 10, and then 21 through 55, because there's other rules. The statewide rule is so complete and detailed that they don't need a local rule to add to it. So you got the statutes, an example of Washington, the RCW, case law, higher court precedent, state civil rules, and local rules. And then you need to know where to find the court forms and how to fill out the forms if you're representing yourself. So those are like the 4 elements of things that everybody needs to know to be able to put on their own case and what attorneys need to know and learn. That being said, more specifically, you need to know the Code of Judicial Conduct for judges, the rules of professional conduct for attorneys, the rules of evidence. I have a video on my store about that. It's probably the most thorough, detailed product or anything that I've ever done. I probably need to do videos on every topic like that. It's about an hour and a half. It's way cheaper than an hour and a half consult with me. You get to download the video and look at it over and over and over again, so you don't even need to call me for follow-up questions. That might be about it, but I want to get on here and talk about the bare minimum. If you don't know how to look that stuff up or thoroughly understand most of those things and the principles, you're totally lost and you need to consult with me. You know, people who actually want to fight for their kids usually get 3 to 5 consults with me within the first month or month and a half of finding out about me. Those are the ones who actually succeed the most. Whether you like me bragging about that or not, or it's just somebody's totally lost. I won. People who are lost need to learn how to do something, so they need to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about. And the more you do that in any area of life, the more you're going to learn and the better you're going to be at it, whether you have a mentor, a personal trainer, a teacher, or whatever. So, law, case law, court rules, statewide and local, court forms, CJC, RPC, and the ER. If you don't know how to look that stuff up, Google it or get a consult with me.